For youth, the one of the more impactful people in my youth was my high school orchestra director. I went to Memorial High School in Houston between 2006 and 2009, and during that time, the head director was Mr. Bingy Shu, and he was a widely well-respected man, even by students outside of our school. And his influence on me was primarily in his integrity, and he was very principled. He would praise good work, and he'd punish when I misbehaved, even though I was one of his favorites. So he was really good about being consistent and not showing favoritism, even though I got him sometimes. And something that I always stuck with me was how he held you to your word once you agreed to be responsible for something. So, for example, if I failed to bring a permission slip for an event, it didn't matter what excuses I had, whether the printer broke the night before or whether I asked a friend to print it for me and bring it to school and they forgot. Mr. Shu would always make it a point to have me own the responsibility and to own the failure. And back then I thought it was a little unfair, but because after all, like blaming a bad printer or a forgetful friend felt like a valid excuse. But over time I grew to understand the wisdom in it. All the blaming did was protect me from feeling like I was a failure, and it would seat me in a place where I had no power to change things. Taking ownership, however, taught me both that my life doesn't end when I accept that I failed, and that in the place where I own my responsibility, I have the power and creativity to make new decisions moving forward. So that's my youth story. Thank you, Mr. Shu. The pivotal moment I want to talk about in my education was right at the end of college when I failed to meet my requirements to graduate on time. Before college, I'd been an exclusively A and B student, but I think after leaving and getting free from the view of my parents, I really let myself go. And by the end of my final semester, I got my first F in a class, and I had driven my advisor away, and I was 15 books behind on the material I needed to familiarize myself with in order to fulfill my final graduation requirement, the colloquium, which was basically like a 2-hour discussion with 4 professors that I got to choose, but we'd have to talk about all these books and the courses I'd taken, and it had to be focused into a discussion, like an oral thesis about what I'd been doing with the 4 years of college. So it was like a free-form oral rationale. When I did the math, I realized I'd have to read almost full-time for, I think, like 2 months over the summer if I wanted to graduate only a semester late. So accepting both my failure and the sobering mathematical reality that I'd need to read that much was a pretty impactful moment in my life. And basically I learned that small moments of laziness over multiple years can add up to serious, unavoidable consequences. One of the more momentous career moments for me was as a creative freelancer. A client paid me $2,000 for a logo when I had asked for $1,000. And they told me that my work was worth so much more than I was charging, and that was kind of crazy to me. I just didn't have a sense of scale about how much budget businesses have. But at the time, I was feeling grateful about it, but also I was like, this is probably an anomaly. Like this client probably just likes me a lot, and this is probably not something I should expect with other clients. But the next time somebody reached out to me for a logo, I remembered what this client had said, and kind of on a whim, I decided to try asking for $2,000. And this particular company accepted my rate without even hesitating. They were just like, okay. And that shocked me, and it opened my eyes to how the value of creative work varies wildly between different kinds of audiences and different kinds of clients. Because I'd struggled with getting somebody to pay me hundreds for a logo, but like very recently before that. It's like that's That's huge. Like in music, for example, if like parents of a non-musical or non-music appreciating child wouldn't want to spend more than like a few $100s for a cellist to play at their child's birthday party, even if it was like Yo-Yo Ma. But if you put that guy in a concert hall with cultured fans who appreciate his work, you're gonna be selling out theaters. So it really is important to find your audience. And over time, this experience taught me that in addition to developing my craft, I also need to learn how to understand what kind of clients my work is most helpful and valuable to, and to train myself to stomach being able to say no when a client doesn't see my value.